Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Value Loop. Before we start, I would like to tell you what the Value Loop is. So here is a little about us. The Value Loop is a community of driven professionals committed to growth and collective success. Here at the Value Loop, we turn potential into performance through shared learning and real conversations that inspire action. At the heart of the Value Loop, we have a very simple loop to learn, to apply, to share, and to grow. Today, we have a very exciting episode for you. But before then, we have had previous episodes that we would want you to go back, reflect on, or catch up on. You can look at these episodes on our YouTube channel, our WhatsApp channel, and our LinkedIn page. You can scan the QR code or you can just search by the handles. So without further ado, today's topic would be taken by none other than Muhammadu Bello Shagari. I will give you a little insight on who Muhammadu Bello is because he is a very inspirational young person in Nigeria. And the topic he will be taking us today is leading before you have a title, how young professionals can build influence. So Muhammadu Bello is a respected young leader, a public speaker, and a documentary filmmaker. He's also an advocate for young development, so you can see why he's very pivotal to this series. He has previously served as the National Youth Council President of Nigeria. He is currently the Vice Chair of the Non-Aligned Movement Youth Organization, NAMYO for Africa, working with young leaders across the continent to advance peace, volunteerism, and sustainable development. As a graduate of Business Information Systems and Informational Technology from the Middlesex University in London, Bello combines technology, leadership, and storytelling to inspire positive change among African youth. He is also the founder of Barcode Multimedia, so he has a wide range of expertise when it comes to documentaries and pulling strings in the media world. He has produced documentary exploring Nigeria's history, governance, and national building. So he has also interviewed a bunch of Nigeria's forefathers and founding fathers. Throughout his career, Bello has represented Nigeria and Africa across numerous stages. He has been put on the national platforms and international platforms, earning his recognition for commitment and empowering the next generation of leaders. I am inclusive in this inspiration. This session promises to be particularly insightful as Bello brings to the table a lot of leadership experience as a young person and a lot of experience in life in general. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Bello to give us a couple of words before we dive right into it.
Thank you very much, Amber, for that very extensive introduction. And I must say, I'm very happy to be here with you guys to share my experiences, especially that has to do with leadership. uh, for a week, Abba has been trying to get me to prepare together with him for this program. Unfortunately for him, I haven't uh, given my all to give him the full attention that to require us to probably put together slides or prepare as professionally as you prefer. But I mean, we are all young people, and I'm not a fan of too much formalities. In fact, if there's anything I hate is too much structure. So I'm not a fan of structure. So I believe it's something we could make more interactive and I would rather share more of my experiences than get too technical about it. I think that will work better for us. So I'm very happy to have you guys, and I can't wait to just begin this very important discussion.
Great. So, dear audience, I'm guessing you can see why Bello is the right person to speak on this topic. He doesn't like he. Let's speak to our previous topic. He likes chaos or organized chaos. Is that what I say? So, from how long I've known him, I know that is correct. So let's dive into it. So, Bello, you have been a leader or been in the leadership space for some time. So just give us in like a 1 minute, just give us a background around you before I deep dive
Okay.
into our questions.
Uh, I'll start from the point where I started activism, sometime around 2016. Uh, I found myself being active in the activities of advocacy for young people, and eventually I became the chairman of the National Youth Council of Nigeria in Sokoto State. Not a lot of people know about the National Youth Council of Nigeria, even at that time until I became the chairman in Sokoto, and a lot of young people became aware of it. The story of how I became the chairman of the National Youth Council of Nigeria, Sokoto State, is something that I would like to share with you guys because it highlights something that is extraordinary that we've been able to do with the young people of Sokoto State at that time. Eventually, I ran for the president of the National Youth Council of Nigeria. And just to emphasize, the National Youth Council of Nigeria is the umbrella body of all youth organizations in Nigeria. So whether you agree with it or not, it represents you, it represents your interest. So in fact, it's better you agree and be part of it so that you can contribute towards whatever policy discussion and implementation that comes with the National Youth Council of Nigeria. And eventually, I resigned in the middle of it, and I was offered other opportunities. I became the managing director of the Royal African Young Leadership Forum, which was founded by the Oni of Ife. And presently, I'm the national representative of the Non-Aligned Movement Youth Organization, and I was sent uh, in 2022 to represent Nigeria in the founding of the organization. So, in in short, the non-aligned movement, I don't know if you guys are aware of the non-aligned movement, is the second largest bloc of countries after the United Nations. And in the United Nations, it's the largest bloc of countries uh, founded in the post World War. It's a post World War organization. When the United Nations was founded, there was this drag between the West and the East, the Americas, democracy, and the Eastern communism. They were scrambling on Africa, on South America, on some of the Asian countries, on some of the European countries, and of course the Middle East. So some of these leaders of these newly independent countries came together and said, we don't want to be part of that tension. We want to be independent. We want to be free to deal with any country we want to deal with and to restrain from dealing with any country of our choice. So it's about 120 countries that came together to form the non-aligned movement. Here in Africa, we have the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, we have the likes of Jamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, who were in the forefront. And it was founded, and like I said, it's about 120 countries. You know, so in 2022, we conversed in Azerbaijan. That time, the non-aligned movement was under the leadership of the president of Azerbaijan, who came up with the initiative, who thought that there should be a youth organization for the non a youth week for the non-aligned movement. And I went there to represent Nigeria. We debated the statute, and we founded the organization. And I came back as the national representative. 3 years later, I emerged as the vice chair. There are three vice chairs representing three different continents, and I emerged as a vice chair representing Africa. So I'm in charge of Africa. And now, just probably in a month, we are having an election, and I'm also, just for your information, running for the chairperson of the Non-Aligned Movement Youth Organization. So that is just a brief about my experience.
That's very wonderful. And yes, I have been following your journey, so I know how far you've come and how far you've gone. So it is very inspiring to see. We appreciate what you've been doing for the African youth on the global stage. So I would obviously some people would want to know how to join the non-aligned movement or how to participate in some of these things, which we will discuss much later. But for
Mm.
now, let's start with some of the questions that I earned. Or you want to take that question first before we start?
What question?
How youth can join into
Yeah,
activism like
I
you?
mean, okay, let's dive into it. Uh, uh, let's talk about leadership first because it's the topic. Let's understand what leadership is. And I believe I'm not coming here to lecture anybody. I believe all of you know what leadership is. But just to give you a perspective, uh, you know, to me, leadership is about responsibility. Uh, leadership and entrepreneurship is almost they're similar things, you know, but they, I mean, they are two different things that, but they are very similar. Taking responsibility, taking initiative, being in charge. You see a problem, you try to solve it. That is what leadership is about. People often mistake leadership with titles. You know, I believe so. People are naturally born with qualities of leadership. Some people learn to be leaders, and some people are just not leaders. And you don't have to be a leader. Some people do better when they support leaders. But to be a leader, you have to be able to take responsibility. A leader is also somebody who takes charge and start blaming others for whatever shortcomings they have. You know, leaders don't have to be technical. They don't have to be the technical guys. You know, they don't have to know everything. I think that's one of the mistakes or misconceptions that we have about leadership, thinking that leaders must know everything. If you have a president, you ask him every question, he will be able to answer. No, that is not leadership. Leadership is your ability to manage people, to deliver outcomes, to deliver results. You know, your ability to identify the right people for the right thing, and your ability to make decisions, sharp decisions that are quick and that are, right. I always give this analogy of wisdom and intelligence. You see, it's very easy to be intelligent, but where the difficult comes is in wisdom.
Mm,
Anybody can read 1,000 books and know all the nitty-gritty of everything, but how to apply it is what matters. And that's where leadership comes. You
mm,
know, I believe most of the people that are here are either Muslims or Christians. Uh, in all our religious scriptures, one of the most important thing that you see that is being given to prophets is wisdom. And wisdom, because wisdom without knowledge is just a waste. In fact, it can be very destructive. So leadership requires wisdom, knowing how to apply this intelligence or knowledge in a way that it will benefit those who you lead. So I think that is my own philosophy about what leadership is. It's about, number one, like I said, taking responsibility.
Okay, okay. That's very insightful, like as usual. I think what we'll do is I would ask you some of the questions that we have aligned for you. So many people believe leadership begins when you receive the title or a title. So from your own journey personally, what does
Mm.
leadership before you have a title truly mean? And how can a young professional be leading from where they are? So you've kind of spoken to it, but from a more broader perspective, comparing your journey and maybe the average Nigerian's journey, what do you think on this?
You see, you can start uh, seeing qualities of leadership from someone from a very early stage in life.
So,
Some of us have discovered it early, some of us have discovered it late. Because one of the most difficult things to achieve in personal development is self-discovery. It is self-discovery is a topic of its own.
it
Somebody
is.
like me, I have spent uh, years trying to discover who I am, and in the process, I have become so many different things at so many different times. People who used to know me 2 decades ago uh, and never seen me maybe till now will never believe that I have become what I have become today. Because I mean, at a point, I was the leader of a rap group, and now I'm leading, an international organization, multilateral organization. So, so, you know, we took you take initiative. You take initiative. Look at some of the people that have been identified to be class monitors, even from primary schools to secondary school. As for me, I became a class captain at primary three. And from then until I got to primary five, I was still a class monitor. But I changed my school. So the new school I went to, of course, I couldn't, uh, you know, I wouldn't be identified because I was just new in it. And then I went to secondary school. I became a little bit of a bad boy. So of course, I didn't hold that position until I got to SS3 that I became a cadet commander. So whenever there's a group dynamic, people look at they identify leaders. They like to see who is doing something different, who's trying to, guide the group, who do the group have confidence in terms of initiative, and moving the group forward. So these are some of the ways that uh, leaders are identified in group dynamics. Uh, as for me, just to give you a brief background of how I got into advocacy, when I graduated from the uni, I graduated in 2012 from Middlesex University, and I became very interested in the history of Nigeria, and to be particular of Shehu Shagari, who I am directly connected to. I was trying to understand my roots, and then I felt that the history or his story as well has been very much misrepresented. So, what am I going to do? Just sit down and wait for somebody to come and fix it, or somebody and come and tell the story in a better way? No, I thought I now have a responsibility to make it right. So this is the mindset of leaders. Because I mean, I'm just a grandson, one of his grandsons. Maybe we're about 100, but who among them have decided to do something about it?
Okay.
Nobody. So I just took the initiative to say, okay, let me do something about it. And I took the initiative. I started going to people, interviewing people, and I ended up interviewing almost all former head of states in Nigeria. Somebody told me that it was not going to be possible. He challenged me, and that challenge became my motivation. He said that why don't you just go for normal people? Why do you have to go for all those people? Can you reach them? How can you even you don't even have the experience? But I built my experiences with them. Sometimes when I look at those interviews, when I look back at those interviews, and I see some of the amateur mistakes I've made. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of them because if I had not made them, I wouldn't have learned. And I was able to interview them. I traveled to the United States, to the United Kingdom to interview very important people. Some of them journalists, some of them historians, some of them diplomats. So in the course of my interview, one of the diplomats I met is an undersecretary in the United States. He was like, when I was done with the interview, probably he was impressed with the interview and he asked me, uh, Bello, what are your plans? Are you thinking of joining politics? And something clicked right away. Something clicked. And I was like, in my mind, I never thought about it. And I'm here telling the story of, great people and what they have done. What have I done? That's the question that I asked myself. What have I done? And that was when it kicked in. As soon as I got back to Nigeria, I formed a new organization called Association of Young Media Entrepreneurs, because that's where I belong. And I remember we had our first meeting, a couple of people, including Medina Meshanu then of the BBC, the famous Medina Meshanu. She's now very famous in the media space. And we had our first meeting. And in our first meeting, you meet all sorts of people. There are people who are very upfront and so on. Although, it was my initiative. And then we decided that, okay, we should have a structure and have a leadership. I never sought to be the leader of that organization. And in the course of our meeting, there's one of us who was very overzealous and wanted to lead the organization. And we went to a vote and I won, even though I didn't want, I was nominated by somebody. And not that I didn't want, but I didn't ask for it. While the other person who was asking for it didn't get it. So why did they choose me over the person who was volunteering himself? I believe they chose me at that time because they saw that I was more interested in the breakthrough or the progress of the organization, and I brought the vision forward. I was more interested in what the organization would achieve and what it would become rather than how I will lead it. So, these are some of the things that make people identify you. It's not about you presenting yourself that I have to lead this, I have to become this, I have to become that. It's about you in your core presenting yourself as someone who is looking towards the development or progress of whatever initiative that you guys have. Naturally, people will put you, will have more confidence in you, especially if your ideas align with the vision that everybody has. So uh, it was during that period that somebody just suggested that, why don't you join the National Youth Council of Nigeria? And I thought it was too, uh, how do I put it? Give me the word. Let me use this word. Let me say rugged. It was too rugged for me at that time because I had an experience with the National Youth Council of Nigeria previously before that time, and I even once saw the president and the way he was moving and the way he was dealing with all sorts of things. And in my mind, I was like, I will never take this position for free. Like I literally said it when I saw the president of the year. I said I would never take the position of the National Youth Council president for free. I would if I was given, not knowing that in years, 5 years, when I made that decision, I was going to become the president of the Youth Council. So when somebody suggested that, I was very skeptical about getting into that arena because I know how rugged it is. But eventually, I was convinced, and we said, okay, let's find out what's going on in the Youth Council in Sokoto State. And we went back to Sokoto to see what was happening. And to our amazement, at that time, the chairman of the Youth Council of Sokoto State is somebody of above 50 years of age. 50 years of age. And he was not elected by anybody. He was just appointed. Every governor that comes will just appoint somebody to become the chairman of the youth council, and they will be giving him all the privileges uh, and opportunities that young people should be getting in the state. And we said, no, it cannot be possible. How can we have a 50 something years old when in the youth policy it says the youth bracket should be around 18 to 35? And then we have somebody of 50 years as the chairman of the youth council. So we quickly went to Abuja to meet the president of the youth council to we wrote a petition and we insisted that that guy has to be replaced. And then we started a protest insisting that he must be replaced. And eventually, the president of the youth council in Abuja decided that, okay, he was going to suspend him and eventually appoint me as the substantive chairman to act and to conduct election in 3 months. So he provided all the documents that we required, and we went back to Sokoto and we insisted that that guy must go. And it became a serious issue. There was almost a confrontation. We had to be invited by the Department of State Security to try to mediate between us to avoid any conflict and violence. Because you know, young people, they're very uh, exuberant. In fact, I could remember when I was trying to avoid that confrontation, there were people who were angry with me among my fellows. I had to reassure them that, look, we don't have to go through this. These people, in fact, this is what they like. They just want to create trouble so that it can end up in ruins. But if we use wisdom and follow it, we have all the documentation, the legal backing to pursue this. So eventually, we we pursued it, and there's a funny episode that still sticks to my head. I will never forget. It was a turning point in my activism. The governor of Sokoto State at that time, I mean, Waziri Tambol, got tired of what was happening. So he invited both both sides to mediate by himself, and it was with his cabinet. And we sat down. The other side was, we were both sitting, and then he, in the course of mediation, he asked if we will agree with his decision at that time because he was going to make a judgment. And the other guy said, yeah, he agrees. I mean, normally he's a politician, he would agree. When it came to me, because I knew young people were backing me, a lot of them were waiting for the outcome, and I didn't want to be a coward. When the governor asked me, I responded to him by with condition, saying that yes, I will agree as long as it is in line with our constitution. And he became very furious. Everybody was angry with me, and I stood my ground. Although I later apologized to him because he felt embarrassed by me because I know him personally, him personally. But I just thought at that time that I had to do what was right. So that was how it ended. He he withdrew from the mediation, and there was a faction. Although my faction was recognized by the National Youth Council of Nigeria, and the other faction was recognized by the State Youth Council, state government. So you can see that I found myself in that position not because I asked, uh, I, I asked for it. I I found myself in that situation because I saw a problem and I felt I want to solve it. And that is like I've been saying throughout my talk. That's what leadership entails. Look, there's this wise saying that if you want a job done, do it yourself. You cannot see a problem and start waiting for somebody to come and fix it. Anybody you have seen become anything or done anything is because they have decided to take charge. So, assuming we just sat down and did nothing, that's how the trajectory of the youth council in Sokoto will just keep on going. But now it has changed because of what we did. I probably didn't succeed 100% in what was I doing, but I did the foundation that has led to now the young people of Sokoto being conscious of the youth council and that position, and then taking charge of their affairs. Now it has changed. Before you become chairman of the youth council, there has to be an election. So that is what leadership entails. And I would like to delve into how I became the president of the Archdiocese Council of Nigeria. Is that alone as well is a story of its own. But I eventually, after being the chairman of the National Youth Council of Nigeria, I eventually ran for the president of the Youth Council because of what we did in Sokoto. A lot of young people had confidence in me, and there was an election, and I won with a very short margin. I mean, I think it is 512 votes, and I won with only 11 votes. So it was very close. It's not because of any kind of privilege of anything, but we campaigned well and we found ourselves lucky. So uh, that's my that will be my conclusion on on a bit of that experience. I mean, you have to take charge. If you want something done, do it yourself. Anybody you see doing anything, nobody, you don't have to be delegated for anything. For instance, now in the position that we found the Nigeria is in now, we cannot be sit down and be complaining about what Nigeria has become when you yourself is not doing any you're not doing anything about it. The question is, what are you doing about it? Thank you.
Wonderful. So taking charge is the way forward for people to become leaders. You don't have to be a title holder to become a leader. You're either born with it or you are groomed into it and things like that. Let me move on to the next question. So looking back at your career, what intentional decisions helped you build influence before holding that major leadership position that you had? I know from personal experiences you have, and you've mentioned even on the call, the type of people that you followed, obviously your lineage as well, and then the type of mentors that you have. But what in career-wise, what's pushed you towards this influence?
Okay. Like I mentioned, one thing leads to another. My turning point was that interview with Ambassador Thomas Pickering, who asked me that question that led me to taking action. You see, um, I will encourage every one of us to study the kind of people we want to become. If you want to get into politics, public service, you go and read autobiographies written by people who have been there. If you want to become Steve Jobs, you go and study Steve Jobs. And that is not for you to become like Steve Jobs, but for you to learn from their experiences, what they've been through, or how they've done it. I don't really believe there's a certain manual on how anybody can be successful. Sometimes people get lucky and they think it's their own doing. But one thing I can guarantee is being at the right place at the right time and doing your own part helps in shaping who you become. Definitely. Nobody sits down and do nothing and become anything. We have to take action. So, going back to your question, you have to look at people you admire, try to learn uh, more about them, more about their journey, their struggle, their challenges, their successes. Because I mean, they're also not perfect, and you're not also striving to be perfect. So striving for perfection is itself an imperfect attempt at at anything. So you should just try to study those people, try to learn from their mistakes, try to learn from their successes, and also, if possible, find somebody who you can always talk to about what you are doing, people who are in your field. There's this complaint that people usually make, especially in the political cycle of having godfathers. I used to be one of those people who will say that you shouldn't have, that we don't want godfathers. Just for me to end up understand that godfatherism is not necessarily what we look at it as. It's mostly mentorship. Nobody becomes anything alone. You have to be supported by somebody, one way or another. Even as young children growing up, without the support of our parents, we wouldn't have had the kind of education that we've had. So when you graduate and you go out there in the world, you also have to continue to find that kind of guidance from people who have done it before you. Especially in the kind of environment that we are living here in Nigeria, you can hardly be able to break through without the support of somebody. And I know people often think that you have to have a connection of a sort for you to achieve anything. Oh, I mean, connection in the sense that this is my uncle, this is my. No, you can go out there and make new connections. Uh, you build influence by creating networks, building good relationships. Very, very critical to achieving anything you want to achieve. Building good relationships. I mean, it is good relationship that has brought me here uh, on this program. It's because Abachi was able to maintain very good, relationship with me. There was no way I would say no to him. So uh, try as much as you can to build networks, to build good relationships, and don't think that you have to know anybody for you to be able to offer value. Because what people are looking at for is value in you. Once you are able to show off and you are able to provide something valuable to them, whoever they might be, whether you know them, whoever they are, they will bring you close. Because I mean, what is an engineer and an architect without a bricklayer? No matter how much an architect can be able to design a house, and he cannot put it brick by brick. Somebody has to do it. So that's the sort of relationship. So all these people you see at the top, there are things they will not be able to do by themselves. People have to do them. So who are the people? We are the people. You have to provide value before you find yourself in a position of leadership where you'll be the one delegating those responsibilities to others.
So during the course of your talk, you mentioned having knowledge and having wisdom. This
Yes.
proverb you gave, what is an architect and an engineer without a bricklayer, is an amazing thing to say, because obviously you can see how building networks and building connections is very important. And I will let the audience on in a little secret. Bello is actually my big brother. So even if he said no, I'll go to his house and beg him to be on the value loop, and he can't say no. Oh, so great. So thank you very much again. So as you rightfully mentioned, having such connections, keeping good relations with people, and most importantly, having value is very key to building your leadership. It's something factual that wherever you go, as long as you have, even if it's one person's life that you've touched somewhere, you can
Yeah.
easily reach out to that person. You can grow your connections from just knowing one person. Like this now, from knowing you, I know that I can maybe one day meet one of the former presidents you've interviewed or one of
Of
the
course.
people you're in the council with.
Of
I
course.
know that me and you have connections on different perspectives.
Levels.
And you also mentioned something very important that if you want to be a leader or if you want to be someone, you mirror somebody that has done it before. So previously on one of our episodes, we've mentioned when you want to be a public speaker, you would I advise that you pick up on somebody that is a public speaker. So some people mentioned Barack Obama. I'm guessing you already know who I picked as my mirror, but um, I would move on from that and I would ask you the next question. So let's dive back into the workplace. So in today's workplace, many talented young people are invisible. what practical habits or behaviors make someone stand out and become indispensable? I know you've mentioned add value, but I know also how resilient and hardworking you are. So I want you to please dive into this particular question as well.
Skills, very important. Improve your skills. Know how to do anything better than anybody who is around you. You have to be able to acquire skills that align with your workplace. If, you know, if, how do I even put, what kind of example should I give? If you're in an environment where people are programming, you should be the best programmer. And look, sometimes being the best in something doesn't even make you more, favorable or valuable. What people want are people who get things done. Somebody can be better at something, but he doesn't get things done. You understand? So if you can get things done, you'll always be visible and valuable to those who are working around you. And look, basic human relationship, good character. I have seen a lot of employees employers who have said that they would employ somebody with good character ahead of somebody with better skills. Because somebody with good character is somebody you can groom into having those skills as well. You understand? But somebody with bad character, no matter how good their skills are, if you can hardly groom them into become better people. It's more difficult. So good character, improve your skills, and maintain very good relationship with those who you are working with. I think it's very important. There's a point I wanted to make, and I think it's skipped my mind. Uh, anyway, let's just leave it at that until, of course, I remember. So I think
Thank
that's
you.
what
I think
that's. Mm,
the point you mentioned about having good character and
skills.
being useful. So if somebody has a million skills, but you are willing to learn, and that other person is just there because he knows he has that skills, or he or she knows they have that skill, and they just have bad characters, they might not
Yeah.
be forthcoming when it comes to the job. So the employer would obviously see more value in you that's willing to learn and has good character. I think that those are very
And I
good
also
numbers.
want I also want to say, don't be intimidated by people working around you just because you think they might know better or they have. Nobody has any superpower. We're all humans. We're all humans. I heard a speech where Obama was saying that never get into a room thinking that you do not belong. We have that kind of mindset that when we get into a room, maybe they're all big people and we start getting intimidated. Maybe let me not say something and I might be wrong. Or be bold, believe in yourself. That's how people are identified. Don't be afraid to push your limits. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. So what? People make mistakes. I cannot count the number of mistakes I've made. People don't, uh, you know, it is out of those mistakes that you learn and that you make your breakthroughs. And some of the so-called mistakes could turn out to be a very fortunate turning point for you. You will never know how somebody will perceive whatever it is that you have to do or you have to say. So never be afraid to take a step to do what your intuition, or what you feel is the right thing to do.
So mistakes are very good to make because once you make them, you learn from them, like you've mentioned. And also, again, I would go back to one of our previous episodes that I obviously spoke about. When you go into a room, don't feel like you do not belong. So, one of the things is that you go in with confidence. You speak to everybody like they are your fellow human beings because that's actually what they are. Social class and social responsibilities are there, but then all of you are naturally human beings.
Yes.
Great. So You have led at both the national and continental levels.
Mm.
So, what's one leadership lesson you've learned the hard way that has shaped how you lead today? So, you have multiple experiences that we you have mentioned on the phone. You've mentioned a bunch of organizations that you're part of. So, what's that leadership pill that you had to swallow that you learned the hard way that has shaped you into you today?
Compromise
Compromise.
is very important, and I got to accept that very later after I have been very uncompromising. It is, you see, the example of my meeting with the governor, where he was trying to mediate between me and the other team, was that I went there uncompromised, very uncompromising, and I felt that there was no room for negotiations. I felt I felt that the right thing has to be done, and there's no atom of the wrong that should be there. There are no concessions to be made. So later on in life, like what I have become today, I believe compromises are necessary because the most important thing for you, whoever you are, is to make progress. So what if your uncompromising stance will deter progress? Nobody cares. So people just want
Yes.
to see things happen. So, and if your uncompromising stance make you stop progress, so what's the use of your lack of compromise? So, compromise doesn't mean that you should allow the wrong thing to happen. It doesn't mean that you should, I mean, you should make too much concessions. But you see as best as you can to see if you can have a middle ground with whoever you are talking to. There should be a middle ground. There should be a certain level of negotiations. You cannot have it all. You cannot have it all. This happened when there was, okay, I'll give you this perfect example. During NSAS, I supported NSAS when it started. I was one of the forefront people who were supporting it online and so on and so forth. It got to a point where the government became very frustrated, and they wanted to negotiate with the young people to say, okay, you have a problem, let's sit on the table and let's see what the solutions are. And the young people decided that they don't want to sit on the table at that time. What do you want? They said they want answers. Okay, come, let's sit. Let's see what is feasible, what is doable, and what is not. The young people said that they don't even have any representative, that nobody should represent them. So they became very uncompromising, that they don't want to sit down on the table to negotiate their terms. And I started following people. I started texting people like the Aisha Yusufu, Moju, and the rest of them, telling them that, look, uh, I feel there should be a certain level of intervention, and we should see how we can go to the table, even if we are going to say no. Sometimes people think going to the table means you are going to go there to say yes. No, if you have been called to the table, go to the table and say no, because you cannot be saying no from afar. So that when you say no, they will ask why you are saying no, so that you can explain to them. But we became very uncompromised. One of the young people I spoke to at that time was saying that the government is afraid. That's why we should keep pushing because they are afraid. I said no. When the government is afraid, you should be afraid because imagine, for instance, somebody holding a gun, yeah, a gun that works, and you jump on him uh, to scare him, saying that probably you're pranking him or something. What do you think? Somebody that, for instance, is impulsive, and government can be very impulsive. What do you think is going to happen? He might mistakenly shoot you out of fear, even though if not mistakenly, they can he can shoot you and call it self-defense. So if government is scared, we should also be scared. You understand? So we should come to the table and talk so that we can save the situation from being drastic. But we refused. We became very uncompromising, and eventually, everything failed. The movement failed in the end. It's one of the most successful movement that the when it in terms of momentum, but it ended up without any outcome because had we gone to the table, we would have negotiated things that right now would have become policies and we're enjoying. So no matter how much you disagree with somebody on a professional level, if you guys are being called to the table, go to the table. Don't take it personal. That's another thing. I when it comes to professional work, I never take it personal. I remove that mask of you being a person I know to somebody I'm dealing with professionally. You know, you remove emotions and become very logical because if you are driven your emotion, this is not a father-son dynamic or husband-wife or boyfriend-girlfriend dynamic that you have to be emotional. You have to be very logical when it comes to professional dealings. So that's one thing I learned the hard way that there's need for compromise as much as one would think uh, there shouldn't be. They should be very uncompromising. And this is a very common thing with people who start activism. When they are young, they are very exuberant, they become very uncompromising. And they accuse people like us who have something of being sellouts and so on when we are trying to soften. Yeah, but we have been there and we know that sometimes, it doesn't really work that way. There are times when lack of compromise is necessary, but there are definitely times when compromise becomes very, very important for negotiations.
I think you coined it very beautifully when you said compromise because I immediately you said that I went back to multiple situations that I've seen where either my direct leader was not compromising or I wasn't compromising in certain aspects that I had to later fold, which ended up being positive. So compromise is a major part of is a major obstacle, especially if you're stubborn or if you're an activist or things like this. So that is a very interesting one. You see, picking up very interesting nuggets. I'll run through the last couple of questions so that we can take questions from the audience real quick before we close. Um, so many young people are waiting, sorry, for opportunities to come their way. From your experience, how can they create opportunities instead of waiting for them? So this somewhat speaks to the new generation of AI and stuff like that. So what do you have to answer this with? Because I know you're very tech savvy as well. You're a digital native, like the word has been coined very recently.
Even though I have become a little bit outdated now because I've been focused on other things. Anyway, uh, the world things have never been easier like in this generation. I mean, AI just came in 2, 3 years ago, but uh, it feels like we've always lived with it because I cannot imagine living without it. So it's very easy to learn. The tools are out there for everybody. That's why uh, kids are smarter. I mean, in this generation, kids are smarter than the kids in the past because in the past, somebody like me in the second when we were in secondary school, although we had we were the first of our generation to have access to computers in the 90s, in the late 90s. But when we want to know things, we usually have to go to the library and read the encyclopedia, not the encounter you have in your computers. We have to go and I was a very fan of encyclopedia. I go on open pages and see things, learn about things. But now you don't even need even Google has become almost useless. Apart from the fact that they have integrated AI into it now that you can even ask it questions. So we're at the age where information has become free, has become very uh, closer to us than any other time. So it's very easy to learn and to apply things you want to apply. In fact, you have AI as your assistant now to to prepare things for you. The only thing is that never allow it to become uh, never allow yourself to become fully dependent on it. I mean, there are always ways you can use these technologies to improve your own skills rather than diminish them. You know, put in your ideas, let it be an assistant to you, somebody, a tool that can help you sharpen your ideas, a tool that can help you sharpen your skills, a tool that can help you improve your work. So I believe skills are becoming almost free now, unlike before that. People have to go for workshops and stuff to trainings to be able to learn. Uh, so that's all I have to say about that. Before I go, I mean, before we go to the questions and answers, I have a quiz that I have. I just want to ask our listeners uh, to give me their opinion on who they feel is a better leader between Buhari and, let's say, Babangida.
Interesting.
Yes,
You're going to cause commotion on our on our
because there's a point I want to make about it.
Okay, so audience, a question has been put to us. Interesting. So some people have mentioned that they
Okay,
weren't alive
okay. Let's
during
say
Babangida's time.
uh, Buhari and Obasanjo.
Okay, so that might be more
Yeah.
suitable. So you have Obasanjo going into into the chat a lot.
Mm. So why is Buhari not a better leader? Buhari is a very uh, I'm asking them now. You know Buhari is for the masses. Why is Buhari more popular if he's not the better leader?
I actually want more people to answer this, but I want the people from the value loop to also chip into this. So guys, if you are available, please also answer
Bec-
because obviously
Because
we
that's why
want
I
to
would have
know.
preferred I would have preferred using Babangida to rather than rather than Obasanjo. But let's go with Obasanjo.
So
Why is Buhari?
there's someone that mentioned that Obasanjo is a better negotiator and carried
Hmm.
people along.
Hmm. So let me just quickly respond to that. Well, I mean to the question I raised. Actually, Buhari is a very good person. He has a, a better political will. He has uh, more interest in moving the country forward, but he's not a leader, unfortunately, for him. And that's the only thing that has failed him. All these things he has and he wanted to achieve, he wasn't able to achieve them because of poor leadership on his own side. So, in terms of uh, personality and personal integrity, Buhari is a better person. But in terms of leadership, Obasanjo is a better person. And
Yawwa. So sorry to
and you
interrupt. I have gotten the comments that you are looking for. So I have people that
mm,
were from that generation. So someone has
mm,
mentioned that Buhari as a military president is
mm.
better than Obasanjo, but as a democratically, Obasanjo is better as a president. So they are
Uniform.
you're causing commotion in our in our comment
Let
section.
me let me explain to him. Uniforms do not change who
Why
people
did he
are.
not stay long in the he didn't stay long in as a uniform man? So you wouldn't even know
Let me
how
explain to you.
or what. Yeah.
Buhari was a better leader as a civilian head of state than what he was as a military head of state. So let me give you the factors. Number one, As a military head of state, Buhari was just 43. He has very little experience, and he was extremely ruthless. Although he had good intentions, when he was removed from office, everybody in Nigeria celebrated because I mean he's the person who arrested everybody and said they were guilty until proven innocent instead of the other way around. So look, don't be surprised if you go to heaven, but you see Buhari in paradise and other people in hell. But he was not a better leader. He was just a good guy, but he was not a better leader. So the reason why I wanted to use Babangida as an example because Babangida was he's one of the people who has put us in the trajectory that Nigeria is in today, a very bad trajectory. But he's a good leader. Imagine how can somebody be that bad and then still be a good leader? It's because he was able to, you know, uh, provide what we call leadership. He was able to have a plan and execute it, even if it is bad. He was able to manage the country in a way that he will have full control over what is going on and steer the policy direction. But like Obasanjo, I think Obasanjo is one of the best leaders we've had, but he made too many uh, unfortunate concessions that were selfish. And had it been he had the best of intentions, he would have been the best leader we've ever had. But he didn't. Buhari had the best of intentions, but he doesn't have the leadership capacity. So these are some of the issues that we have. Somebody like Jonathan, we could also say is relatively a good person, but where is the leadership? So what if he's a good person and the leadership is not there? So this, I just wanted to distinguish between uh, having good personality and having a leadership quality. These are two different things. There are people with good personality or bad leadership quality, and there are people with bad leadership quality or good personality.
This is very interesting. You've sparked a lot of debate, and I am sure some people have some questions for you. So I'll skip my last question, and I'll
Right.
open the floor to questions and answers so that we can close. So we have a couple of minutes before we close for that. So I will let people. Anybody that has a question can type it, or if you would want, we can allow you
I think,
speak and ask your
yeah,
question.
I think it's better they speak if they can.
Okay, no problem. So, do we have any questions? I'm sure Abubakar Yusuf wanted to speak earlier. I don't know if he still wants to. I also saw Yakubu Audu also trying to comment. So, I'm not sure if they still have the questions or I can just ask.
Hello. So I was only speaking on the Buhari and Obasanjo era, and he has already nailed it. Like Buhari was young and he has little experience, and he didn't stay long on the throne for us to even know him better. That's why we, based on what he has done in the past, so we thought as he's coming the second time, he will be able
Yeah.
to complete what he started. But unfortunately, it was a flop for me. I don't know about others.
Mm.
It was a flop. So that's what I was trying to just talk about. Thank you.
Actually, just to add to that, when Buhari came the second term, he realized that his approach as a military head of state was uh, amateur like. So hence his new approach. But people actually wanted that approach mixed with a little bit of wisdom. But the switch he made was too extreme, so much so that everything just became worse, unfortunately. Do we have other questions?
So we'll take one more question, possibly, then we can wrap up and go because I'm sure you need to go. Yakubu? Ndibusi, do you also have a question? I'm sure your brain might be tickled. So if you have a question, you can ask.
All right. Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I personally have really learned a lot. I still want to talk about this leadership, especially when we're trying to compare two people. If you ask me, but I think you in your last um by your last sentence, yes, maybe you've actually nailed it or you've answered it, that the compromise he made as a democratic president is too extreme. Well, maybe one thing that I will always want to say is that sometimes we forget our audience, especially if we live in Nigeria, honestly, and you want to do things right, democratically, you won't get anything right, honestly speaking. For me, this is where Buhari totally missed it. I'm a Buhari fan to the core. I think he missed it. Yes, I was quite very, very young. I didn't even know how he ruled as a military head of state. Maybe, I guess I was just about 4 so at that time. But by the time I was even 6, 7, then he was not even a military head of state again. But man, I think even what he had created, or the idea he had enshrined in us as at that time. But I think by the second time, he did not even understand his audience. Honestly speaking, the Nigeria audience lead some brutality when you are emphasizing something. Let me put it that way. I'm sorry to say that.
Just
So,
just to clarify what you are trying to say, that's the same thing why we are praising Obasanjo. That's what Obasanjo has done. You understand? If Obasanjo has been a little bit hard on during his government. How many speakers has Obasanjo had? About 3 or 4, and he all influenced their replacement because they were not supporting his what do you call it, policy direction.
yes,
So
exactly.
you have to have a certain level of control over the government. If you cannot have that control, it makes it's poor leadership. For instance, when Buhari came his first time, he decided that he was not going to intervene in what's going on in the National Assembly. And people he didn't like ended up becoming Speaker and Senate President. And for this first 4 years, they slowed down his own progress. He couldn't achieve anything in this first 4 years because he didn't have the legislature. And as a president, you're supposed to know that you needed the legislature to make any kind of progress. So that is where leadership was lacking on his own side during his term in government. So you are right. Can we go ahead? What other question do we have?
Um, I think I think you've exhausted all the questions, and it's roughly around the time that we would need to close up. You have
Okay.
done a fantastic job on the topic.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
again
much.
for actually coming on the show. I think we would need to invite you again because you're very insightful, and this is something we would also appreciate if you invite us to one of your events. We would happily come. I mean, I would always be
Okay.
available for you, and
And
we would come.
We will
yeah,
come.
maybe next time I want us to delve more on history because understanding history will make us, understand where we are now. Understanding Nigerian history very important, very critical.
So that's not a problem at all. I would happily be on that panel with you because I love that topic. That is also part of my own professional or field of study. So it's a topic that's very dear to my heart. So I am open to us doing that. Somebody has one of our loopers has a question, I think.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the wonderful session. But Abba, I think there's a question in the chat. I don't know if it has been taken. There's a question by Farida.
Okay, okay. You have two questions. Let's see if we can run through them very quick. The question is what qualities make someone a good leader? results, character, or both of them. Then the second question is a leader who gets results but is authoritarian better than a democratic leader who achieves less?
Wow, that second question is a very tricky one. Anyway, no, leadership requires so many different things. And one of the most important thing I think is vision. A leader has to be visionary. That is to see 10, 20 years to come. What are they trying to achieve? You understand? What is the main objective of them being where they are? For instance, I'll give you an example. When Erdogan came, he said he has a 7 point agenda. That's a vision. You understand? And I'll come back to Buhari because he has become our victim today of giving an example of bad leadership, being a good person but not being a good leader. When Buhari came, he really never had a vision. The only thing Buhari was campaigning on is that he was going to fight corruption. Fighting corruption is not a vision. It's just one objective, and it's a long-term objective. It's something that you do structured. But when you say, I mean, when you come, when you become a president and say you need to have a vision, what do I foresee Nigeria become? Give the people an idea of the kind of Nigeria you want to see. So, so unfortunately, Buhari came and he never had a vision. And therefore, there was no goal for his administration apart from fighting corruption. And fighting corruption is not something you just come and do and leave. It's something that's continuous. It's a long term. Uh, in fact, Obasanjo's vision on fighting corruption was better because it was under Obasanjo that we have EFCC, we have ICPC. You see what we are talking about leadership. And although Obasanjo is a bad guy, it's not even as clean, as Buhari. Because no matter how much you hate Buhari now, you cannot say that he has stolen a kobo of yours. But he was not good in making sure that a kobo of yours has not been stolen. But you cannot say the same about Obasanjo. I will not make any allegations here, but uh, Obasanjo at one point arrested his IGP of police. So you see, so these are some of the nitty-gritty, you know. And and a leader has to have the ability to communicate. Look at how poor Buhari's communication was with the Nigerian people. People were very much complaining about how communications. I bet that uh, Tinubu, as much as sometimes he becomes, you know, a subject of uh, ridicule, he's somewhat a better communicator. His government is a better communicator, and he possesses more sort of uh, a listening ear than the Buhari's government. Because now, whatever policy Tinubu comes with, and there's a public uproar, you see a change in that policy. There will be certain level of response and decisiveness. So this is what we call leadership. These are some of the qualities. I'm not giving you all. And to go to your second question, you know, we are not expecting a leader to just be ruthless or to also be so weak that everybody will be doing whatever they want. But there has to be a balance. You know, when you are able to strike that balance, that is what we call leadership. Like I said, you can be intelligent, but if you are not wise, you have a very, let me just say, if you don't have emotional, if you don't have high emotional intelligence, you wouldn't know how to balance these two. So there's a need for a little bit of ruthlessness in leadership, but all of it without also the other side of it, it's not good enough. And that is what we have seen with Murtala Mohammed. That's what we have seen with Buhari. First coming, they were completely ruthless. Although they became celebrated later on, but we would not have known what their long-term stay in government would have been. Murtala and Buhari's first coming, they are very similar. Murtala made a lot of mistakes in his first coming. As much as we celebrate him, we know he has good intentions, but he made a lot of mistakes in terms of his temperament. In fact, it is those mistakes that led to his own assassination.
Not certain if this is my network. I think our speaker's network has gone off. So I think our speaker's network has gone off. Can we? So thank you very much, everybody, for joining once again. I sincerely appreciate everybody that has joined. And for people that don't know our social media channels, please look at the channels on the valueloop.com, value loop, and then our WhatsApp channels and our LinkedIn page as well. So thank you very much, and we will meet again on the next episode.